Righto, welcome back to the Maximum Cricket Podcast. My name is Munter. We have Lugsy and Jacker with us in the cordon, and this is episode number 69. That's right, insert your ACC joke. That is very, very nice stuff. Today's episode, we are taking stock of the Cricket World Cup landscape. The Asia Cup is wrapped up with India running out dominant winners. That was after Sri Lanka collapsed quicker than England's decision to leave Harry Brook out of their World Cup squad. Catch you later, Jason Roy. Malan dominated New Zealand 3-1 in their one-day series. And this morning, South Africa came back from 2-0 down to win their ODI series against Australia. So now is a perfect time for TMCs ODI World Cup power rankings. But first, a message from this week's sponsor. This week's episode is brought to you by the One Warriors, who booked themselves a place in the preliminary finals against the Brisbane Broncos this weekend for a shot at the NRL Grand Final the following week. What a true honour it is for us to be part of the Up the Wires movement by coming together for this week's episode. The Warriors, simply incredible, 40-10 winners against the Newcastle Knights. A spokesperson from the Warriors reached out to us at TMC to continue the Up the Wires movement into the podcast space. We have come together to provide all TMC and Wires fans with a deal for the ages. When you go and buy yourself a ticket for the game against the Broncos, chuck in the code Up the Wires TMC and you will receive 69% off to celebrate the 69th episode of the Maximum Cricket Podcast. Terms and conditions apply, of course. Boys, what an exciting opportunity this is for us and the Wires this weekend.
Yeah, massive. Didn't think the Up the Wires movement was sort of catching on. So, good of them to really sort of branch out and get the heavy hitters on board to sort of spread the word, actually. So, yeah, good to be joining them and, feel like a part of the final, part of the side.
Yeah, and obviously there was a bit of a disagreement between the three of us. I turned this deal down. I was trying to partner with Steggles from the Roosters there and get us to deal with them. But obviously Munter, the leader of the pod, came through and, yeah, he overruled me. So, yeah, Up the Wires, I guess, for this week.
100%. And the movement is taking off. Like I'm at work today and I'm working with a lot of older men. And you're using like RTs, so you're like, where are you, Roger, blah blah blah, and then all I hear all day on the RT is just up the wires, yep, up the wires, yeah. Like honestly, all day it is absolutely out of control. We're really glad to sort of add to it.
It's really blown up this last 24 hours since that signing because I hadn't heard Up the Wires at all basically the last few weeks, so. Now I'm hearing it everywhere and it makes sense now that they've came on board.
100%. And boys, how are we?
Good, mate, good.
Yeah, not too bad, mate. I mean, I'm still a bit down from this Roosters loss, if I'm honest. I'm handling it a bit worse than I expected, but I'm with a bit of cricket chat, I suppose.
Yeah, I suppose. We'll move on. Yeah, like, as I said, the main cricket's done. Australia, South Africa's done. New Zealand, England done. Asia Cup, well and truly done. Still got some New Zealand bangers one days, England, Ireland, and a bit of Australia, India action, but not too sure how much we're going to read into it. So we thought now's the time for another edition of the World Cup Power Rankings. Just a couple of weeks out, lads, and I think we have a much better read than when I did the Power Rankings 3 weeks ago. I will preface this by saying I am ranking teams that I think could genuinely have an outside shot of winning the cup, or at minimum they like making the semi-finals. So straight off the bat, no offense, but catch you later Netherlands, catch you later Afghanistan, and catch you later Bangladesh. The Dutch thoroughly deserve to be in India. No one's taken that away from them. It won't surprise me if they tip up a big side or a few. But I'm not sure how much experience they have in India. So they'll be a 10th for me. Bangers in Afghanistan are going to be a very, very niggly team to play, both of them, especially in these conditions. They're going to suit both your attacks. Bangladesh showed that they can beat anyone when they beat India the other day. And Afghanistan have as good of an attack as anyone. But yeah, lads, call me crazy, but I just can't see them stringing together for like 5-6 wins to make the series, make the semis. Is that fair, lads, or am I being harsh?
No, I think as we've sort of touched on it in pre-show, didn't we? That I think 6 is probably your number. I think you're going to have to get 6 wins to be in the dance. I know we snuck in with 5 and some rain outs, but yeah, it feels like 6 is the number. And yeah, I mean for them to get 6, they're going to have to beat the other 2 minnows, and then 4 of the top sort of 7, which yeah, I just can't see them doing that. Maybe in a series, that they're good for 2 wins against a big side when you're sort of seeing everyone every day. But in one-off games, especially when there's so much on it, I think the big dogs will just roll over these 3 teams, unfortunately. But yeah, it's great they're there. They're going to provide some entertaining cricket, I'm sure. We saw that with how Netherlands played in those in the qualifiers. We've seen it with how Afghanistan play, and they'll put up some good fight. And as you said, they'll win a few games. But yeah, I can't see any of those 3 getting to 6 wins.
Yeah, no, I sort of echo everything you say, boys. Unfortunately, the way this tournament's set up, it really does sort of take the minnows out of having a say in the knockout stuff. If it was a tournament, say they added a couple of teams like the West Indies and made it say 2 pools of 6, and then you go and 4 out of those 6 make it, I think, and then you go to a knockout or something like that, it gives them a better chance. But when you've got to be in that top 4 out of 10 and you've got to play everyone, I just consistently don't think they'll have enough, as we've said, to win enough games. Like us heading over there in this one-off series against the Bangers, I think there'll be some really hard games for us. Don't be surprised if Bangers tip us up a bit there, but once it comes to the tournament cricket, I think they just won't quite have enough. Although, they handled themselves well in the Asia Cup. I think Netherlands are probably the one that'll really struggle, and the Bangers and Afghans will actually gives a few teams a scare. But yeah, to cut it short story long, they won't be featuring in the finals, unfortunately.
Yeah, no, yeah, obviously I agree because I said that at the start. But yeah. So yeah, I've split up the rest of the teams into 2 categories. I've got the possibles and the probables. There's probably 2.5 probables. We're talking locks to make in the semi-finals, and the rest of the sides, I think, that they can beat any side on their day, but I think they've all got just enough glaring weaknesses that as a betting man, I couldn't put money on them winning the whole World Cup, but they'd probably be a good shout at making the semis potentially if they have enough guys getting hot, if you know what I mean. So I wasn't really sure how we're going to do it, so I'm going to go through my rankings. I'm going to start at 7, and then we'll just talk about the side, their pros, their cons, their form, etc., and we'll go from there. So, boys, at 7, bear in mind I did do this ranking last night before Sri Lanka got rolled and South Africa won the ODI series, but I've got South Africa at 7. Now, let's start off with why I think they're at 7. Why I don't think they'll make the semis. They got no all-rounders, and I mean none. Janssen at 7. I read this morning when I was looking at Cricket Info, the caption on the game was that Janssen had a career day, made his career high score, took 5 for great bowler, no question. And then I looked up the scorecard and he got 42, and that was his career high, and he's at 7. So nice knock, but that's concerning considering I guess some of the other teams. Subcontinent World Cup, not sure if that suits, and basically just any sort of World Cup just doesn't suit. Yeah. Just doesn't suit. Just not for them. So anything else to add, boys?
Yeah, I mean, you could rank Africa anywhere from 5 to 7. It doesn't matter. They don't play tournament cricket well historically. They just don't. We can't put them 4 until we see it at a World Cup. what have you done for me lately does probably maybe sneak them to 6 for me personally. I think that's a pretty decent Aussie side that were, you know, after game 1 or 2, pretty ready to say they were going to win the World Cup. So for them to rein that series back is a pretty good job. Some of that hitting we saw, you know, if that even a sort of half of that is replicable in India, they could be okay. But yeah, I mean, Africa, as you said, they don't have an all-rounder. 7's too high. You probably need a guy at 8. Jensen's probably 8 is his highest. If you want to go deep into a World Cup, especially a knockout game. You know, I could see Africa needing to win their last game to make the semis and being 3 or 4 down early, sort of a quarter final, if you will. But that batting needs to probably get extended by at least 1, just in case you do lose a few early.
Yeah, I mean, do not put South Africa in a situation where they need to win a game to make a semi-final. I'll tell you that, because that won't be happening. Yeah, look, I think, glad you touched on that hitting the other night, because coming home from watching the Warriors,
the pro.
I'm a few drinks deep. Don't get me wrong, but I've had to actually look up the game we were watching to make sure that I was watching the right game. I just simply didn't think they could score the runs I knew they got after 30 overs. It was just, I mean, it's as clean a hitting as you're ever going to see, and like, it's pretty hard to be surprised by hitting in these days because everyone does it so well, but that was actually like on another level. I won't add too much. I mean, full disclosure, I did my rankings after seeing them beat Aussie and see what Sri Lanka did, and I still had them 7th. So, you know, I'll keep them there. I'm happy to say I just don't think they've got quite enough, unfortunately. Some serious hitting power, don't get me wrong, but not enough.
Well, that's the argument for, isn't it? And that's why, you know, they're a chance if they get hot, because that power, that top 6 is, when it's on, it's as good as any top 6 in the world. You know, De Kock, Bavuma, Rassi, Markram, Klaas, and Miller. Like we've seen in this series a little, like granted, it's at home, so which is like the conditions are nowhere near what they're going to face in India, but they've got a lot of IPL experience. So like this pick could look stupid, but I'll be surprised if it looks as stupid as Simon Dill picking them to win the whole World Cup. Let's put it that way. Early contender for our worst take segment that's coming up soon.
It's not a bad, like, just a quick touch on conditions wise, because I reckon I've got a feeling this could be like, and they could make India flatter than we think, just so their batters can really have a go. Like, I still sort of feel like this could be a 280 minimum World Cup the whole way through. So that batting depth as well, I think is going to play massively into that, because I think you are going to need sort of 300 most games to get you through.
So I've got Sri Lanka at 6, which when I was doing these rankings, I was tempted to put them higher. Granted, this was before they got rolled for 50. And that was because of, like, ironically, their form was pretty good heading into that demolition job. They've got a really good, like, spin threat. Like, they've got good spinners all around their side. They do the basics right at the moment. Like, they don't really, apart from, wow, this is looking worse after getting absolutely skittled. But before that game, they had great form. They did the basics right. Had a lot of good players, not great players, which is probably why I'm not going to have them winning it or anything like that. And it's in India. I think that's got to mean something. I think that's got to suit Sri Lanka. But they still got rolled for 50. And I've got this gut feeling that they just don't have enough batting to just make a lot of bulk runs, or even make 3 figures as a team, turns out. Boys, where do you see Sri Lanka?
I think it's you're never going to rank them much higher, sort of pre-World Cup, are you? They are that they sort of feel like a West Indies at a T20 tournament, like, you know, have some good pieces, might get on a run, but you're probably not going to, like, pick them to be top 4 early. And as you said, I mean, getting skittled for 50 is just, now you know they've got that in them. You're just going to wonder when's that coming at the World Cup. So If they're playing good, consistent cricket, they might, get to 5 wins and have a couple of shockers. Definitely see them as a candidate to lose to the Netherlands but beat India. Sort of set up. So, yeah, 6 feels about right.
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty ugly viewing. Pretty ugly viewing today. And that really does stick in the memory, something like that. And I'll tell you what, is I've seen it with a few teams now, just recently, like I said last week, how much a week can change how you feel about a team. And maybe it shouldn't, and you get a bit drawn into recency bias and that. But I'll tell you what, even a hint of movement, you saw it a bit last night and certainly saw it at Sri Lanka. Like, I've got a lot of guys just don't seem to know how you play it these days. Like, as soon as it moves just an inch or two, it's like they're all at sea, and it looked pretty ugly. They almost
didn't feel like the ball was hooping around that much. What did it? Like that? It was obviously there was some good deliveries from Siraj, but it didn't feel like there was like a lot of those balls were unplayable. Like it just felt like they just had no clue.
Oh, it's very rarely the unplayable balls that gets anyone. But yeah, Jasper I thought started pretty well up top and was moving it a bit, and yeah, it just looked, well, as you said, it wasn't. I'm not talking hooping like day one of a test or anything, but even a little bit of movement seems to have a lot of guys at sea now, and yeah, they just feel a wee bit. I'm not saying like a minnow, but like it just feels like they're not going to beat. They're just probably not going to win enough games, I don't think, to get into that semi-final. I think they'll be solid, sort of consistent, but yeah, I don't see them winning enough games against the big sides. And as you say, every chance to drop one against a minnow as well. So I just think consistency over 10 games, they won't have enough. Not enough strike power, and just not enough at either, like not quite enough on either end to win enough games. So I'm happy to have them there.
Yeah, I think to put a bow on it, I think just lack a little bit of star power for mine, just that X factor, which sort of rolls on nicely to New Zealand, because you could argue they've got a similar sort of issue with them. And there were times last night when I was doing this list where I had New Zealand 7th. Like I genuinely, like they convincingly lost that series against England. Like granted, England are a very, very good side. And at the start of that series, when they won that first game, I was thinking far out. Tell you what, they could go all the way. And then by the end of that series, you just felt like this is probably a fair reflection on how both these teams are tracking. Like the issues with New Zealand it's still the lack of batting depth. They're trying to fill the injury to Santner and Bracewell's hurting. They're trying to get Ravindra to play both roles, and he's doing an okay job, but he's just being asked to do too much, and he's not really used to playing that role. They're not really taking any wickets through the middle. Lockie Ferguson's form it just feels like it's been going downhill since the 2019 World Cup. If they don't take wickets, Bolt and Henry up top, I don't know where they come from, unless Sodi's just has one of those tournaments. I think Sodi needs a massive tournament. But having said that, they are a tournament team. They do they do turn it on when it matters. But if I'm a betting man, I can't have them in the semis at the moment. Where do you guys have the Kiwis?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like by the start of the World Cup, you'll have $2 on us to be in the semis. The big blind from you. Yeah. I mean, I think it just shows probably that we need everyone on the park and everyone playing well to really sort of make some moves. I think we saw if we're going to play our best brand of cricket, we can stick with England for a bit, but not over a series, which is probably, what favours us for the World Cup in a way, because we can just get up for like each game and, play it as it comes. And maybe if we play our best game 3 times against big sides, we get those wins, and then we pick up some easy ones against the minnows, and suddenly we've snuck into 4th as we've sort of done in the past. So there's enough there that if these injuries don't take a toll and Lockie figures it out through the middle. And it just feels like there's a few too many ifs for us at the moment. Felt like at the 19 World Cup, we didn't really have the ifs. We sort of had the plan. Lockie was bowling well. There wasn't any batting question marks. Bolton, Southey and Henry were at their sort of peak, and we didn't need that second spinner and third spinner as much. So, I think 5's probably fair for us because we do have that sort of World Cup experience and a tournament team that's done really well. But that question mark list is just starting to grow a little bit too long for my liking, this close to sort of game 1 of the World Cup.
Yeah, I mean, I talked about it before, how much a week can change how you feel about a side. Probably no more than New Zealand, I guess, for a lot of people. Pretty disappointing week of cricket for them. But I don't think it was I guess it's a shock that we got so thoroughly outplayed, but not in the way we did. I think we sort of said on last week's pod, that's a concern for this side. A team blasts 320 odd and we just don't have the capability to chase it, and you lose a few wickets and you're trying to keep up with the run rate and suddenly you've sort of been well beaten. Ravindra obviously a real standout in that last game, but I think in a tournament when you're playing some of these big teams day in, day out, these guys will get targeted. Like guys like Kohli, and they're just not going to let him bowl to them. So that's a huge challenge to be asked to bowl 10 overs in that sort of situation as well. But we'll stick to a highlight, keep it short, as we always talk about. Like, there's a reason when it comes to the Rugby World Cup, England always sort of stick around and win games, and there's a reason with football, Italy are always up there. It doesn't matter how their form is going in, because some teams just play tournament sport, and that's what we hope our Caps do. They just do the right things. They get their scores. They don't lose to minnows. They let other teams beat themselves, and suddenly we slip into third or fourth. So that's the hope. But, yeah, I mean, we'd have fans coming at us from all directions if we rank them any higher at the moment. But, they'll still slip into third or fourth. Don't you worry.
But they'll definitely slip into third or fourth, but I've ranked them fifth. Is what we're saying. But I think what benefits the Caps is, generally World Cups or tournament stuff like that. That average score hopefully comes down. I think if you're looking at those scores around the 260, 270 to 280, that brings New Zealand back into the game. If we're getting big scores like that, that's just going to push us out of the game because we can't compete with that. And I think that's what suited us at the 2019 World Cup was the pitches were just quite difficult to bat on. Like, the semis and the finals, for instance, they're both, 230 plays 240 sort of thing. Like that really sort of suits us to a T, just to suffocate teams, because we'll just do the basics well and let other teams beat themselves. So I won't rule them out. And if they can squeak into that semi, you just never know. You just never know. But for fourth place, I've got Pakistan. Now, obviously, they didn't end their Asia Cup that well. Their spinners were very poor during that tournament, which I was a little bit concerned about. I was very surprised. Like, Shadab Khan took no wickets. Nawaz got absolutely whacked. Their batting sort of fell to pieces a bit there. There's an injury to Naseem Shah, who's going to be ruled out for the whole tournament, which is a massive, massive loss. But having said all that, Pakistan at their best, I just think they could be seventh, but they could also win the whole thing. If you know what I mean. Like, they are a low floor, high ceiling side. Like, if their top order fires, like Baba, he will have to be the leading run through of the tournament, which could happen. Shaheen Afridi might have to be the leading wicket taker of the tournament, which could happen. So I wouldn't rule them out completely, and I just think they have more X factor than New Zealand has. So I've got them in fourth. Where are you guys at for Pakistan?
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say the exact same thing. I could see Afridi being the top wicket taker, and I could see Baba being the top run scorer, and then being in the final of this World Cup versus India. Or I could see, Afridi getting hurt game one, Baba being lackluster, and them just not not doing anything, losing a couple to minnows, and really sort of bowing out without even firing a shot. So, they feel very similar setup to us, but with more star power, as you said. So, I think, for one-off games and when the tournament gets tight and if games matter and, if it's win and get in, Freddie bowling 145 plus and Bubba being one of the best ticks in the world, you've probably got to sneak them just ahead of us and lock them in at 4. But as we said, New Zealand to sneak in and Pakistan to miss out probably, but we'll have them at 4 for now.
Just like 2019.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you me and Munter did do our rankings quite separately and landed all the same way, which I don't know what that says about the TMC, but we're sort of on the same track. I mean, as close as you can have them to New Zealand here going for 5th, I think you could just as easily have them up with Aussie going into 3rd. I'm actually still big on them. I'm still big on Pakistan. I think their conditions will suit. I guess I'm sort of factoring in. I think their spin options will actually stand up a bit at the World Cup. So I think they've still got a bit of room to move there, and I still think with their nasty quicks up top and enough batting there, I actually still I like the look of Pakistan. So I'm happy to have them 4th, and I do think they'll get into those semis. So I think one of these, I don't know. We'll talk about them next, I guess, with Australia, but I can see them dipping.
That's a fair point, because I was thinking about what makes a good one-day spinner, and I think this is probably the point where one-day cricket is just a little bit different than T20 cricket, because you've actually got to take wickets, not restrict runs. If you know what I mean, like you can easily milk a spinner, and I think Shadab Khan is getting, and even like Mitch Santner and even like Adam Zampa, they're sort of, it's like different kind of spin bowling than the T20 stuff. Like I think I think actually being able to take wickets through that middle through big spinning deliveries is actually harder than it seems. And we'll get to India later, but I think that's probably why they've gone like a Kuldeep Yadav instead of like an Ashwin or like a Chahal. They're going for just genuine wicket taking ability, and I think Simon, you're right. They will have to be better in this World Cup, and I think they will. And I think it's just getting used to being playing one-day cricket. And if they can take wickets through the middle, then Pakistan will definitely come right.
Yeah, I think that's the case especially with one-day cricket, as you say, because that is all these teams. I don't know, you're watching some of these highlight packages, like all these teams go. No one settles down if they lose, 4 early. They all are still just going really hard the whole time. So it's like you've got to just keep taking wickets. I think that's the premium these days. Like you'd take a guy getting 5 for 70, early, through the middle and that. Like you'd rather bowl a team out in 40 than let them just go 50 and at a pace. So I think wicket taking is really it is the premium of what you want in a bowler now in one-day cricket.
100%. 100%. Now, next up, we've got our top 3, which I did have as our probables, but I think after Australia's effort last night, I don't think they're a lock at all. I think they are still part of the possibles. They've got a lot of big hitters, but they've also got a lot of guys that can't bat properly. If it does a little bit, which is a little bit concerning. So where do you guys sit with Australia?
Yeah, they're in an interesting spot, aren't they? Because as you said, they've got these big hitters, but I think they've probably in the way they picked their initial side, and now with Head getting hurt, I think they're losing that. They've lost that batsmanship a touch. I'd say Marnus comes straight into that squad for Head. I wouldn't say they pick him if he's not going to play half the games. I mean, there's a chance they still take him, but I'm sure there'll be some shuffling there. But yeah, I mean, as you said, they probably do just need a little bit more batting. But with someone of Steve Smith's quality, especially as he sort of hitting these last few Ashes series, last few World Test Championship runs around, potentially a last World Cup, like he might eke one more, but he might not. So There's a guy like that, if he really sort of has his mindset that this is his last World Cup and wants to have a massive one, the batting could be there and it could be there in spades. So, I mean, their bowling unit, as we said, I've cursed Zampa again. I could stop a train at this point if I wanted to, just by saying it's the most efficient one in the world. So, Zampa's cooked now, no good. But outside of that, I mean, they've just got world-class players like your Hazelwoods, your Cummins, your Starks, Zampa. These guys, even like an Ashton Agar's a really, really good player if he's there and playing well. So I think outside of maybe one or two batters, they are very well-rounded. And they've got just really, really good cricketers that over, 900 overs of cricket are probably going to win 6 of them and are probably going to be there for the big dance, I'd say. So, yeah, I just see them having too much talent to miss out, really.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to talk shit about them, and then Jacko just spent 5 minutes saying how good they were, and it's really, really put me on the back step. Yeah, I mean, New Zealand fans are just never going to write Australian cricket sides off. We've been hurt too much. We know how good they are. We know how good they are in World Cups. I will say, I mean, I am a bit concerned by them, but I've got a lot of guys still to come in. And Steve Smith could really stabilise that batting lineup a bit. And if he does, then they'll go far. But as you said, Munter, I think they looked a bit at sea just when it was moving around a bit last night. And I think they have just completely doubled down on this we're going for it approach. They're one of the teams I sort of talk about that if they lose 4 early, they just keep going. And I think that could get them in a bit of trouble, to be honest, because at this stage, I feel like that's their approach. So yeah, I mean, it's hard to write them off. I don't see them in the final. Put it that way. I see them maybe having a bit of a poor World Cup, but we'll see. That could come back to bite me.
Well, I think the top two is sort of pretty. Yeah, it's pretty unanimous. I think you could argue either way. We've got England, India final. Like both of these sides are stacked. They are stacked with batting options, power, all the way through. Like England, they've got power from 1 all the way to 9. Like you look at that second one day versus New Zealand, always sticks out when they are 5 for spit, and they just keep going. And they keep going. They get themselves to a score. It's just relentless batting all the way down. And with that, they have so many all-rounders that come with that. So they've got a lot of different bowling options, which, they're not like a strike bowling attack, but they've just got enough bowlers to sort of get enough wickets throughout the 50 overs. And then you got India, who are, it's a home World Cup. The 4 of the last 5 World Cups that has been won by the home team. They've got the best spinners. Like Bumrah looks incredible with the new ball. Siraj looks incredible with the new ball. That batting lineup just looks ominous as fuck. So, can they sort out can they play without fear? That's going to be the big question, boys. Who do you see coming out on top?
Yeah, I think it's, as you said, these two are neck and neck. England's been the cream of the crop in white ball cricket for so long, and India seem to be peaking at a really good time. Like having Bumrah back, as you said, is massive, because I think he's genuinely world class. I think he's probably been sort of, forgotten in that top tier of quicks recently, just as how good of a player he has been. So, he could be a separating factor between the two, especially at home, especially in home conditions. But I mean, these two are too close to call. Give me England. Just, they seem so good. They bat everywhere, and as you said, they're just looking for the hot hand with the ball, and that's who's gonna get it. So, England to edge India in the final for me.
Yeah, look, I'll keep it pretty short. You're saying it could go either way. I don't think it could. I think India are a clear number one. I just think it's their time. I know it's a ridiculous reason just to pick a side to win a World Cup, but outside of it being their time, they are just that talented.
Oh, they're jerk, yeah.
I just don't. Honestly, I just don't see them losing this World Cup. I just think it's too much. It's too big. It really is too big. It's their conditions. They've still got all the talent in the world. It's the last go around for a lot of these guys, but it's not them like at the tail end of their careers or peaks. They're still all hitting it so well. I just think there's too much power, too much bowling. They're in home conditions. They won't lose this World Cup.
As long as the pressure doesn't get too much and they don't get too tight in the big moments, they are the best side. Like 1 to 11, they are the best side. England, I would be nervous if I'm India and I'm playing England, because that's a side that's been there, done that. I will add, Owen Morgan. You don't have to constantly go on about how you know how to win a World Cup when you just won a World Cup, like barely. Like, let's just relax, mate. But England, like, I wouldn't be surprised if England won it, but if I'm a betting man and I'm not, I'm going India. Like, it's just Virat Kohli. Like, it's on the shoulders stuff. It's written in the stars. Everything happens for a reason. It is India's time.
Next week on this podcast, you will see a TAB betting star, but with $100 to win on India.
It won't be us, though.
Oh no, it's none of us. No. I'm getting the frog to put 100 on.
Yeah, is that Mosley's money? Is it?
What are they paying, actually? What are they paying?
I believe it's roughly $325.
Yeah, I was going to say $350. Well, England $375.
Yeah, not bad. Good odds.
Well,
no, in the TMC podcast, it'll be South Africa, New Zealand in the final. So,
the Netherlands will be tipping up India.
Oh yeah. Right, I better wrap up. Got a minute to go. Episode number 69 in the books. Will we get an ACC shout out? That's the question. If you enjoyed the show or any other shows, please do like and subscribe if you are here on YouTube. Or if you're here on any other podcast platforms, leave us a like and maybe even a 5-star rating if you are feeling inclined. If you want extra content, please do check out our Patreon, where this week we are reviewing classic games in the lead up to the World Cup. This week's game is the time South Africa chased down 434 against Australia, one of the all-time great games in 2006. Speaking of the World Cup, we are looking at doing 3 review shows a week, so keep an eye out for that. Thanks to Lugsy and Jacko as always, and I'll catch you all next week, same time and same place.
Up the wires.
Up the wires.